Welcome to session 2, where we're going to finish the word cheer, which is what we use for a man needs respect. And last session, remember, we looked at C, meaning you need to cheer, applaud, right, honey?
Yep.
And then secondly, in the last session, we talked about honoring his differences, specifically the way that he does not talk, use as many words as women do. And so to honor that, not dishonor that, not disrespect that, but respect that. And when you do, you get a man who's full of life and is a better man for you.
So hopefully you ladies have been working on that and will continue to do that even as our sessions go on.
Yeah, and I tell you what, as we move now into the E, and the R, let me prepare you a little bit. The E, the first one we're going to look at in this session, is a little touchy. I mean, it's something that's not real easy to share, especially in the setting we were in a church situation. But even as you listen to this, it probably gets a PG-13 rating. We get a little bit into the sexual relationship in a marriage relationship and even the temptations of that. And so I just want to prepare you a little bit. It's going to be a little uneasy in the room for a few minutes as you listen to us. And we're only doing this because we want to be honest and share from our own hearts and our own relationship.
And also, though, just to relieve some of you, it's not like you're going to be sharing all this with the entire group. So don't kind of, as you watch it, don't freak out and think we're going to be sharing this stuff openly. We just want to reassure you that no, you won't be sharing all of that openly.
Yeah, actually, we hope that you'll share some of that with each other in your relationship, but it's not going to be something just shared publicly in your group. So I would encourage you just to sit back and allow God to speak to you through this material. And I mean that. I mean God will speak. And my prayer and our prayer is that we will have ears to hear what he has to say and then apply it. So sit back and let him speak to you.
All right, so we got the C, cheer, the H, honor, appreciate, approve of, applaud his differences, and then the E, and just write this down and we'll explain it. Enter his private temptation world. Enter his private temptation world. Now this is an interesting point that I hope we can try to explain. When we've spoken around the country on this, we didn't even say it this way. We were much more, what would the word be? Specific about this. Enter his private sex world. And what that means is this. Most men I know are tempted in the area of sexual temptation. Not all men, but if I would talk to 10 men at Kensington Community Church or any bar or any club or any library or any office, and they were honest with me, they would say there's a sexual temptation that rages in their life. Almost all the time. Notice how quiet it is in here right now? That's because we're speaking truth. It really is. One, it's a touchy area, and we want to be very careful with this area, but men struggle with this. Women do as well, and I don't understand that one like Ann would, but for a guy, I know that temptation. Pornography is a huge temptation for men. Christian men especially, because they're trying to defeat that. They're trying not to give into that, and yet it's blatantly everywhere. If you've got a computer, you've got to have boundaries and safeguards, or it can be there with a click. And there are private temptations going on in a man's life, in a man's mind, in a man's soul, in a man's heart that many times no one knows. No one. Especially his wife or his girlfriend. And so he lives in this private world. And many times he's being defeated daily in this world and nobody knows. And you tell me that doesn't affect who he is as a man. It affects every minute of his life. And every guy here knows who has lost in that battle knows I'm speaking the truth. You can't even be the man God created you to be because there's this private war going on. And it's a war. I don't mean a skirmish. I mean a war. I've experienced that war. I'm in that war. And every man here that's honest would say I am too. Now, what we're saying here is one of the ways that Ann can give a cheer or hugely respect me is to be a part of that war with me. Now, some of you guys are saying, I don't want her to know anything about it. And I'm saying this, I want Ann to know. And when I invited her in and she understood and came into that battle, in other words, understood, let me communicate that with her. And guys, I'm telling you, if you're not going to communicate this with your wife or your girlfriend, you've got to communicate it to somebody. You've got to have another guy. Single guys, you need a guy that knows this, or you're going to lose, and it's going to be flames because your life's going to be destroyed. So I'm married, and the first month of our marriage, 26 years ago, I realized the sexual temptations I had as a man that I thought would just go away now that I'm married, because we're having sex 3 or 4 times a day the rest of my life, being a married man.
Oh my God!
Just kidding. No, that's what a man thinks, though. I'm going to get married, we'll be able to make love, it'll be legal, it'll be wonderful, and the temptation will be gone. And guess what? Guys, you don't have to shake your head, yes, but the temptation doesn't go away. Pornography is a temptation, other women are a temptation, men are visual, that's one of the differences. And so there's this battle that's waging, and so the question is, do I say something? Do I let her in? Do I tell her? Or do I just live this private little world? And for a while, I lived a private little world, and then early in our marriage, I said, I got to tell you something. And it was really scary and hard to say, but it's like, I need you to know this. And initially, it was really hard.
I can't even tell you how hard this was for me. I mean, as you just share that, and if you aren't aware of that as a woman with a man's life or a son's life or whatever, it's a scary thought. It's so scary for a woman to think, wait a minute. And in a woman's mind, we're thinking, so what does that mean? What does that look like? How far is that going to go? So when Dave would tell me, I am really tempted, my first thought was, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Do I not look good? Can I not satisfy you? And we struggled for years with this whole thing of me not understanding and of realizing after time that this is a part of who Dave is. And he's controlled it. He's been awesome. And I can't even tell you how thankful I am that he's let me into that world. Because what we've found is if you don't let anyone into that world and you stay in the darkness, there is no other place that Satan, who is the defeater of our souls and our tempter, loves us to be there. So by bringing it to me of saying this is really a struggle and you have so many men in your life, it's like bringing it out into the light. And I know that doesn't totally solve it.
No, but for me and for many men here at this church, it's a process of having my wife involved as a partner with me, as well as other men who know, and we battle together. And it's an awesome gift to have men and Ann in my life that we're going to win this thing. And the other side of that is interesting. Another piece of the respect piece in the area of the sexual life of a man is that for a married man and his wife, the regularity or the consistency of making love in your marriage is a huge, screaming applause of respect. I mean, you know this, you've heard this, but it's really true. If a man feels like his wife wants him physically, he feels so respected. And I don't know if women understand that because they think it's just a need and it's just this physical desire. No, it's so much bigger than that for a man. It's tied to our soul. And when Ann desires me, it's like, oh my gosh. And I'm not just talking sexually or physically, but that's a big part of it. And it's interesting, if you would say to a woman, women say to me all the time, my husband hasn't talked to me for 2 months or 6 months, I'm going to divorce him. I can't live with this. He won't communicate. And you want to go, if you haven't made love with your husband for 6 months or 8 months, he can feel the same way. Neither one of them are right, but that's how it feels to a man. Now, there are all kinds of things going on. We don't have time to get into that. But just to understand that the physical relationship in a marriage, a Christian marriage, is very important to the marriage and very important to the respect that the man feels in the marriage. Does that make sense? I mean, as Ann and I have grown over the years in this, I remember one time I was doing a Detroit Lions chapel service on a Saturday night. We have a chapel service in the hotel where we stay before the game, and it was my birthday. It was down at the Troy Marriott. We used to stay there, and it was my birthday, and we were playing the Green Bay Packers the next day, and I got up to speak at 7 o'clock or so for chapel, and I'm not kidding. I'm 5 minutes into my message, and Luther Ellis, who goes to church, walks in, and he hands me a note. He's late. First of all, I'm looking at him like, what are you doing late? He walks up the front row, hands me a note. It says, for Dave Wilson. I take the note, I put it on the podium, and I keep going. He goes, no. This is an emergency, Dave. You need to open it right now. So I'm like, oh, maybe something happened to Ann or the boys. So I open it, and I'm not thinking. I just read it out loud. Right in front of the guys and the coaches, and I'm like, and it says, happy birthday, big boy. I'm waiting for you on room 2036. Come get your birthday present. And I read it. I'm like,
He would have read it out loud.
And I didn't read the whole thing, but I read enough, and I'm like, oh. So I realized that, Ann is in the hotel. She's got in her room, a special night, and I put it down, and I was like, I'm totally red, and all the guys are like, looking at me, and I put the note on the podium. I'm like, well, I guess, after I'm done with this message, I'm out of here. And Bobby Ross was our head coach. He's a military guy. I don't think he's ever said the word sex out loud. He's just a real proper guy. He's in the back row, and he goes, hey, Dave, you better go right now. We'll take care of it. Get out of here. I'm like, see ya, and I just ran out of there. But let me ask you think I felt respected? Of course, not because it became public, but because my wife was interested, I felt wanted. And it's interesting, I've run into Detroit Lions that were in that chapel, 10 years ago. They've seen me, and they'll go, man, I still remember that chapel. It's like, wow. A guy in his 40s? Wow, that's amazing. What a role model you were for us. But anyway, that was probably the strongest message that we ever gave to a lot of guys in the Detroit Lions, because it was a message that said a husband and a wife in marriage who have made a vow to each other. This is a vital and a good thing. And I'm telling you, it made me, and it still does make me feel respect.
And I know that every woman out there in a marriage right now is feeling this load of guilt that has just been heaped upon your shoulders.
Yeah.
And it really is hard. And we've talked about this before, but it is true. For a man, for me to get Dave's heart, for me to minister to get who he is, it's almost like I need to minister to his body before I can minister to his soul. That is so weird. And it's so reversed, because for Dave, he needs to minister to my soul, to minister to me before he can minister to me physically.
What a bummer. It's
does
really
that make
amazing.
sense?
Yeah, but that is really true, and that's a good way to explain it. All right, the next one, Ann's going to explain, and we'll do this next one very quickly. Enhance your beauty. Enhance your beauty.
I guess this is one of the things that really surprised me. And when I read this book for women only, which is it this in our resource center?
Yeah, we've got this resource center by Shanti Feldhahn. Excellent, excellent book about what makes a man tick.
One of the chapters that it talks about is, it says, really talks about how a man views the way we look. So when I first read this, I was a little bit defensive, like, what in the world is this? And I guess it's the best way for me to communicate it is to read a little bit what happened. Shanti had spoken, the author had spoken to a group of people, and afterwards, a man came up to her and he said, I don't think women know how important it is to take care of themselves and to not look like a slouch around their husbands. And this is a typical woman, what do we first think? You mean not be overweight? And he said, not really. The bigger issue is your husband sees that you're putting forth an effort to take care of yourself for him. He said, my wife only weighs 115 pounds, but her weight isn't even the issue. It's not about being small. If she doesn't take care of herself, dresses sloppily around me all the time, never exercises, has no energy to go out and do things together, I feel like she's choosing not to do something that she should know is important to me. And then it becomes a real issue because it affects her ability to do things, and her self-worth and desire go way down, and then it affects me. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Guys, that's true. And I, when I first read that, actually, this book is written for women to understand men, and Ann had it in the house a couple years ago, and I went and read it. It's not for guys to read, it's for women to read. I'm like, I want to see if she really understands men. I read this thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Read this. Because it really captures all the aspects of a man, and this is one part. And again, like Ann said, I don't think it matters if you're a size 3 or size 5 or 10 or 12. It's the effort put forth to say, I'm trying to take care of myself for you. Not for anybody else, for you, because I know this says to you, I respect you. I tell you what, I cannot explain to you how badly I want the people that I respect in my life to meet my wife, because I'm so proud of her. I just met the new Detroit Lions coach. When Rod Marinelli was hired back in the winter, and it's my 7th Detroit Lions coach. I've been through 7 coaches, and I always want them to meet Ann, because they'll meet me, and I can see it. They're like, yeah, okay, he's okay. And then they meet Ann, it's like, oh, this guy's pretty sharp.
They do not.
They do too.
Oh
It's just the way it is. And it isn't like, oh, she's beautiful. It's just like, this woman is a sharp woman. They are a partner. And we had lunch with Rod Marinelli, and John Kitna came into town as this big setup deal to try and recruit him to come here. And the next time I saw Coach Marinelli was at the facility like a month later, and I could tell he didn't recognize me. I'd only talked to him for an hour. I go, hey, Coach, how you doing? He looked at me, I go, you probably don't remember I'm your team chaplain. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, hey, how you doing? He goes, how's your wife? I am not making this up. We're standing right by the elevator. She is such a great woman. How's she doing? She's doing great, Coach. How you doing? I was like, what about me? But it was like, you know what? Because he respected her, what happened? I'm the man, baby. I'm the team chaplain. It's just interesting to see. And if you were a person that didn't take care of yourself, it would make me look bad.
That is so weird to me. That even at the end, this guy says, thank you for addressing this because I can't. Thank you for saying what we are thinking but could never say. Thank you for taking on a subject that is so taboo, especially in Christian circles. That whole thing is just totally new to me, but it's really big.
Big, 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 big. All right, last one. R is rub shoulders. Last one is rub shoulders. And it doesn't mean this.
I like that.
Rub our shoulders. No, it's this way.
Oh.
We're not talking about us rubbing yours. No, it isn't rub each other's shoulders. It's really interesting. That's the first time I ever heard this was in this book and another one, but it's a great way to describe it. Men want a woman, it feels respect, to just hang with us, to be there. It doesn't make sense to a woman, but just spend time with us. Do things with us. I'm going to Home Depot, jump in the car and go with me. I know it makes no sense, but I love having Ann with me, and it feels like respect when she stops her day to spend time with me.
This is the other thing that's so weird to me. And they did a study with boys that were in the 2nd grade, 4th, 6th, 10th, and 25-year-olds. They had a room with 2 chairs in it. And then they took a set of girls, let's say in the 2nd grade, and put the 2 girls in the room. And they kept the chairs were facing each other, and the girls, when they came in, they sat on the chairs, and they faced each other and talked. In every single situation, no matter what age group was in the room with either 2 boys, 2 girls, in every single case, the 2 girls faced each other with the chairs facing each other, and in every case, the boys went into the room, they put the chairs side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And it's really interesting because we women, we really do think we've got the whole thing going on communication. I do think that we think that we're really good at that. And the guys, the surprising thing was that it was the 10th grade boys that went the deepest in the relationship and conversation. Isn't that intriguing? I thought that was so interesting. And so as I read this chapter, I was so intrigued because it all started to make sense. It was like a light bulb went out. Because Dave will be sitting on the couch watching some movie, and I'll be folding clothes or doing something around the house. He'd say, Ann, come in here. Come in here and watch this with me. And I'm thinking, that's a waste of time. We're not going to talk. All we're going to do is watch this movie. It's not building the relationship. And yet, what does that make you feel?
Oh, I love it. It's just like we're rubbing shoulders. That was a term that worked for me. It's like we're hanging, we're spending time doing nothing. And it really feels respectful that she will stop her world to do that. I mean, in the book, the guy talked about his wife came out and the guy was working in his workshop, and she just sat there and she watched him. She didn't say a word.
She thought, I'm going to try this. So that's what she did.
I don't know how long she was out there.
She sat on the stool, and she never even went out in his workshop. And he looked at her, and he grinned, and she grinned back at him. And 15 minutes went by, and she was still there. He's shocked, and he smiled at her. She smiled back. And they say nothing. They're not saying anything. And after 45 minutes, he puts down his tools. He looks at her and he says, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Isn't that strange? Well, I just thought that was so amazing because there's no communication doesn't necessarily have to take place. And as women, we bond and feel close through sharing experiences through our words. We communicate through our words, and for men, they feel close and bonded by sharing activities.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, a couple weeks ago after a Saturday night service, I went home, and Cody, my 15-year-old, and I played one-on-one basketball in our driveway, and Ann came out and sat and watched. And it's so stupid. I'm looking over there thinking, I feel respected. Now, she'd been reading a book or like, that was stupid, I wouldn't have, but she was sitting there watching 2 men in her life, and we both felt the same thing. She didn't applaud, although she did when Cody scored. She did a little bit, but there wasn't that going on. There wasn't communication. It was just a rubbing shoulders moment, and men feel so respected when a woman would do that. Now, the bottom line is, as we wrap up, is you got a word, cheer. C-H-E-E-R. Just 5 somewhat simple yet profound and even very difficult, I think, to live out. But I'm telling you, ladies, if you will cheer for your man, whatever man that is, if it's your husband or your dad or a boyfriend or a brother, the men in your life, if you will cheer, honor his differences, enter the private temptations of his life if you're in an intimate relationship, enhance your appearance and beauty, and finally the E, the R, rub shoulders, I'm telling you, your relationship will go to a place it's never gone.